way they draft, the way they organize the game, the way they move together, and of course they have the individual skill to back it up. Especially, I think a player that a lot of people put focus on is, of course, Resolution is widely regarded as the best mid laner in the CIS scene. And then you've got Aloha Dance, who I think has really stepped up his game on key heroes. For example, his Rubik, and I think he also plays their Wyvern. They're just a really solid team. This tournament, I think they just came off. They just came off on the wrong foot in the start. It didn't work out, and now it's all about the mentality, about whether they can pull it back. Because I don't have a single doubt in my mind that if they're playing 100%, they are a top contender in this group. Like, they could easily have finished top 2. I think that might be completely out of reach now, or at least like exceptionally difficult. They need to win the remaining games, and other teams need to lose and whatnot. But at this point, they should definitely be fighting, of course, for the winner bracket. Maybe the meta has taken them a bit by surprise. What picks are priorities here? But I honestly just feel like all the really top picks are great for them. It's maybe about how they play against them, because they are a very aggressive team. They're very team fight oriented, and you just look at the picks that get picked in this tournament. I mean, it's right down Empire's alley.
When this patch came around, everybody said, everybody had to learn how to adapt to the patch. Well, Empire was already before the patch playing the same style, so that's why they started dominating at first, right? Because they already played the style that the patch favored, and I feel like just all the other teams kind of caught up on it, and now having more experience, they still play the same, yet everybody else has kind of surpassed them, or at least that's what it feels like this tournament. But if you would ask me, indeed, before the tournament, I would have also given Empire quite a high ranking. This tournament, I'm not sure what's thrown them off their game, but definitely something is. Although they should be more familiar with EG, I think, in terms of opponents. So if they're going to win a 2-0 series, I think this could be it.
All right. What about you, Ben? I mean, how are you looking at Empire right now? Again, rough start, but how much do we look into that?
It's tough just because it's like randomly one person just has an off game. Like Resolution on a Storm Spirit, we thought he made some dubious plays throughout, and it just always seems like they're not clicking. Like the Wisp Tiny game, they just didn't really play that well around their team. They're like always as a unit as like 2 and 3 as opposed to a unit of 5, which I kind of knew them for a few months ago. I think this matchup versus EG is actually going to be really tough. I would be surprised if they took one game off, unfortunately, just with the way that Empire has been playing throughout. But I have high hopes for them. They've traditionally matched up very well versus them. I just think they need to go back to the 5-man, maybe even like eHome's style of play that we saw in the last game. Just very tight teamwork and chemistry without any weaklings. And the more they split up, the weaker they get.
All right. And also for Empire, I mean, on our team sheet, we were talking about kind of the niche pick as that off-lane Sand King. Do you think that's going to be possibly up to contention? Because we did see it just come out for EG in the previous match.
I don't think it's anything that EG is going to be surprised by. If anything, they'll either see it coming and ban it if they don't want to face it, or they'll be prepared for it because, I mean, not only do they know it's their niche pick as well, but they also play it themselves, so they're kind of more aware of it in that case. I think it won't be a surprise, I think, for them if it comes.
But I would agree, though. It is pretty likely that this gets picked at least in one of the two games. But they play them very differently. That's the important thing to keep in mind, is that when EG pick it, it's rarely for Universe. They did do it this game in this series, though. But most of the time they put it on AUI when they feel like they can go a little bit more greedy with their lanes. When PPD identifies, okay, the enemy team is not very likely to challenge us on our safe lane, we can put Sand King in the jungle maybe 2/3 of the first 10 minutes, get a fast Blink Dagger, and then AUI goes to work. That's how they usually play it. For Empire, 9 out of 10 times it's Yoku in the offlane, and he is incredible with this Sand King and Shaker types of heroes, like massive teamfight impact. So I would definitely look for him to get either his Sand King or Shaker, and then, like Ben said, build the whole lineup around this kind of, I wouldn't say wombo combo teamfight, because it's not that good and EG will dodge them, but have like a good mix of heroes that can force the fights to happen, and then the heroes that make sure they happen on your terms.
So overall, what I'm gathering is, in the end, for Empire, it still seems to rely more on the execution part again than more so than draft.
Yes.
For instance, like Hot Six definitely struggling a little bit with their drafting and maybe having to expand. But Empire, in game, that's where they need to focus. Again, gather just together as 5. And, Ben, you mentioned this in the very first day when we saw them. They looked super defeated after their game, contrary to most other teams where they were like, it's a best of 2, it's group stage. They seem to be talking about, all right, where can we fix it? Where do we want to improve? But Empire, I mean, we didn't see much communication on day one, whether it was a win or a loss.
Yeah, morale did not seem very good for their team. It was probably not unlucky of them for them to draw Vici in the first round. I think if they had faced a weaker opponent and gone 2-0 in that first match, things would be a lot different. They seem to, I don't want to say emotional team, but just streaky in general. I think one particular player that hasn't delivered like he normally has is Aloha Dance. Aloha Dance is one of the scarier rumors. I would even compare him to Sneeko on some aspects, especially with heroes like Rubik. I think he has very high impact on, and he just hasn't been a threat. I just never feel like the team that's playing against Empire is scared of really that much anything. They feel comfortable and control the whole game. And Empire before is like the team that always throws you off. You don't know where Aloha Dance is going to be. Resolution is getting out of control. Yoki is going to make big plays here and there, and it just hasn't been very formidable.
Could it be that maybe Aloha Dance, I mean, he's a very young player. He has, of course, been in multiple lands already. Could it be that here, maybe a different setting, all these people, slightly nerves getting to him? Is that a valid option? I don't know from a player perspective if that actually would affect him, because once he turns the game on, I mean.
I think what seems more likely than him being just nervous in the setting is that they start getting nervous with each other. Like, if they can, if their chemistry and their understanding and their calls are the same as they used to be, because they've had a couple of questionable losses, and then it's very easy if in a couple of games you make some mistakes that you're like, we never make these mistakes, what's going on? Then when you start play calling in the following games, you're starting to doubt yourself. And it's one thing to doubt yourself, but when you start doubting each other, that's when it gets really bad.
Right.
And judging from how they've been communicating after the games, when the game is over, it seems like the team isn't as tight as it used to be in terms of personalities and just overall communication. If that transfers into the game, that could be where things are just going wrong.
Okay. I mean, Ben, what do you think about that? I mean, the outside factors, which do you think is affecting Empire more? Or, of course, I mean, we can't tell for sure, right? We're not in there with them.
I mean, this is Dota. This is a 5v5 game played by humans. They aren't Dota robots, Dota machines that play Dota all day, as some people might think. But, I mean, again, they're young people. We don't know them too well personally, but yeah, judging from what we've seen, even from them walking around and just chatting with each other, they don't seem in high spirits. And I don't exactly know why. I think they had like a couple of losses in like late June, early July, which most teams take off, by the way. That might have affected them. It's like, oh, we shouldn't have lost the Fago Squadron or something like that. But I do agree with Sin. It seems like a trust issue in between teammates that has led to this subpar performance.
All right. Well, game one about to start. And actually, as we talk, I find it very interesting because in whether it's sports or any competition, a lot of times when it comes to the top of the top, right, with the world championship for any topic, generally you'll always have, whether it's certain players or certain teams that come in saying like, oh, we're really happy we're here. We're just really happy we're here. Of course, we're going to do our best, but we're content that we qualified for whether it's TI or, the World Cup or something like that. But then here, when we look at those player stories or we hear from the players in interviews, they're like, we're aiming for top 8. We're aiming for the championship again. I mean, every team here comes super determined at TI, and of course, that's why we're getting all these great matches. But personally, I find that very interesting, and of course, it makes for a great show for all the fans watching at home. But for now, let's go into game number 1 between Empire and EG.
Yeah, we're already not going to be able to deal with the silent gyrocopter, which I really like seeing him on. It actually, when Gyrocopter a couple of patches ago, like 2 years ago, was Gyrocopter Lifestealer all the time. It was Silent that played only Gyrocopter the whole time. So I'm kind of sad. He's like one of the ones that is extra nice seeing the Gyrocopter on.
Yeah, he did have it a couple of games in this tournament. I remember at least one Ben and I saw, and there were a couple of moments with Silent. What are you doing?
Whoa, Disruptor ban.
Oh wow, that's
that's
really
that is unusual.
Man, in the first phase.
Very uncharacteristic as well from him. I can't remember what the opponent was, but it was a very memorable game where he's on his gyro, bottom tier 2, they are dire, and he just runs past the tower and gets killed. I can't remember who the opponent was. Maybe you remember them. If you don't, that's understandable. But he's had a couple of plays that are uncharacteristic, just weird mistakes. And as Ben said, if someone has an off game that they don't usually do, of course it affects the game. But if all of them play at like 80%, that's huge, right? Then there's no one to pick the team up if everyone is not playing at their best. So I think targeting this ban on Silent, where even if he has had overall he's been pretty solid, right? But even if he's had a bad game on Gyro, it is still his best hero, so he can definitely rise to the occasion on this kind of hero. Disruptor, same story, one of the best supports for Team Empire to play around. And again, PPD done his homework.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like it. And taking the co-op out of contention, so Empire, I mean, do we think there's definitely a clear priority here for Empire between the others, such as Tusk, Bounty Hunter, of course, Shadow Fiend's still open too.
Undying still in the pool.
Undying is also still in the pool.
And if you wanna have them fight for five-man fight the whole time, then Undying might be a very good option for them to have. Earthshaker will be the first one though.
Okay, Earthshaker's seen that. EG has banned Earthshaker quite a bit so far in TI5, even in the first phase, so Empire not wanting to take any chances there.
They weren't super powerful with it the first day, though. I think we saw it twice in a row from their off lane, and it wasn't as scary as, let's say, Yao's. Again, Earthshaker is a hero that requires a lot of chemistry. Someone has to fall out with the Fissure or the Echo, and we saw that one big play by him, but other than that, like, their early game wasn't as dominant and as disruptive as an Earthshaker I would expect from them.
Yeah. And taking the Shadow Fiend, one of the teams that still seems to be prioritizing that on the Radiant side.
Did that stat on Sumail just say that he went 9-1-3 on Storm the last game?
Yes.
Or did I misread that?
He did.
No,
That's the
he
game
did.
they lost.
Yes, that's the game they lost.
He had one death in the game they lost with like 25 kills.
And that was the one where I think he bought back and zipped back in.
So that was just
one
the
death.
Roshan.
So actually, when EG called GG, he hadn't even died in the base. They just realized the game was over. They had lost 2 lanes of X and were being pressured really hard. So. But that's very, very strange.
Yeah.
Or unusual, rather, not strange. There's the bounty, though, for AOI 2000. And I personally think this is a really good pick against Team Empire in general, because as we've talked about, they like playing this very fight-oriented style, which a lot of teams do. But most of the time when it comes to Empire, they trade. They're not a team that I often see do like the perfect fight as such, but they generally